Hi, katzcradul here. I'm hoping to make a lot of you really happy this morning by doing probably the video that's been most requested. I'm finally going to get around to it today. But may I start off with just a tiny little rant. I was watching some videos this morning like I always do, trying to catch up on, prepping information, see what all you guys are doing. And I've come to a decision that I am going to unsubscribe any YouTube channel that has an intro longer than 20 seconds. I just don't have time for it. I am busy. I know most of you are busy, and some of you may feel the same way that I do. I appreciate the effort that goes on into these artsy intros and all that stuff you do, but I only appreciate it once. And after I've seen it once, I don't need to see it again, and I don't have time to sit through it, and I don't have time to put you on pause and let it load all that and then fast forward through it. I just don't have time for it. So you guys who are into doing all that fancy stuff, you can go right ahead, but I'm going to unsubscribe. Excuse me. The second thing, maybe other people feel this way, and this is the reason I'm saying it, is I don't click on any video that looks like it's an unboxing. That just holds no thrill for me. I actually did one myself a long time ago because it was something that people had asked me about and were interested in, and I'd ordered a lot of a bulk order of vacuum seal bags, and I was excited when I got that and told Preparedness to turn the camera on, and I opened up and showed you all the stuff that was in the box and all the different kind of bags, and a lot of you appreciated seeing that. But I'm sorry, I just don't need to see people fumbling around with their knife and fumbling around with package and looking at the shipping address or silently reading the letter that somebody, I just don't need all that. So if you're doing an unboxing, I'm not watching the video. And if I get into it and you unbox, I'm going to stop, because it's just, and it's not that I don't like to show things that people sent to me. Sassy Because sent me some gorgeous pot holders, and I've got a couple other things people sent to me that I'm going to show you. I don't mind seeing that stuff, but for heaven's sakes, just put it on the table and show me what you got. So anyway, that I just had to get that off my chest. It was just driving me crazy. So with that said, I'm going to get on with the task at hand. I just had you looking at these little peaceful, nice seashells. Since I was ranting, I figured you needed to look at something serene. Yay! I'm going to show you the bandages. I cannot tell you how many people have asked me to show how I make my crocheted bandages. I have made tons of these. It's an interesting story how it started. When I was a young girl, probably about 9 years old, my grandmother's church, for a service project, was making these bandages to send overseas to leper colonies to bind their wounds. Why weren't they just sending regular bandages you could buy at the pharmacy? Because those run out very quickly and they're very expensive. But these 100% cotton crocheted bandages with the stretch crocheted in can be washed. So when, the lepers use them, of course, if you know anything about leprosy, it's people that are covered with these horrible, nasty sores, and the sores bleed and ooze, and when they take the bandages off, they're covered with, the scabs and things. I know that's gross, but I'm just trying to get to a point here. They can throw those into a boiling kettle and boil all the gross stuff off of them, rinse them, boil them again. They can even put bleach in it and make them like new and reuse them time and time and time again. So that was an exciting proposition for me as a young girl. I understood it. I was excited about it. My grandmother bought me a pair of tiny knitting needles and gave me a ball of yarn, and I proceeded to try to do that. I am not a knitter. I never have been. And I got about this much of a bandage done and put it away and never touched it again. And I always felt guilty about that, just like I always do about any unfinished projects I have lying around. And I toted that ball of yarn and that knitting those knitting needles around with me my whole life. Wherever I moved, I had that. And a couple of years ago, I decided, after my grandmother passed away and I ran across the unfinished project yet another time, I thought, in her honor, I am going to make myself finish that, and I'm going to find out where I can mail it. I didn't even know if people still accepted that kind of thing anymore. So I sat down and did it. It took me forever. And I was so proud when I finally finished. You know, I started it when I was about 9 years old, finished it in my 50s, and I mailed it off to a church service that still mails bandages to lepers. But then I thought what a great thing it would be to have some of those bandages around, and even to continue making them for people who distribute them. And I thought, I wonder if I could do it with a crochet hook, because I really can crochet. So I tried it, and it worked out great. They came out just beautifully. And so over my lifetime, I've probably made 50 or 60 of these bandages. They do take a good long while to make. It's not very quick going. But so now I've made some for my own use. If I were to ever be in a situation where the store-bought bandages ran out, then I would have these. You can make them to varying lengths. I make mine between 4 and 5 feet long. When I crochet, I like to see how far I've come, so I measure off every foot as I'm crocheting, and once I get a foot done, then I put a tiny little clothespin in the edge, and I go down, and then I'll finish another foot, and I'll put a tiny little clothespin in, so that I can kind of keep track of where I am. And I like to do that because I can see the progress I made, so I can look and know that that's 1 foot, and here's another foot. And then when I put the third one in, all I have to do is crochet 1 more foot, and then I'm done. When I finish them, I bought a package of these really large safety pins, and I just safety pin it like that, and then they go into a Ziploc bag. Now, before use, I really recommend that you do wash them in hot soapy water and the rinse water that has a little bit of bleach in them. Let them air dry away from, you know, flying dirt particles, that kind of thing. Roll them back up, put a safety pin in them, and then seal them into a Ziploc bag. You could even seal them into a, you could vacuum seal them. So just a thought. So there they are. And I do love making them. I never like to sit idle. So if I have to go wait on my daughter at school, or I wait at a doctor's appointment, I always try to take something like this to do. Now, my camera doesn't do close-up shots very well, and I'm going to do the very best I can to show you how to do this. And I also don't know the proper, how to say the proper instructions for crocheting, so you're just going to have to follow me as best as you can. Here's what the yarn looks like. I'm sorry that I took the label off several weeks ago and didn't show you, but if you go to Walmart, there's pretty much only one kind of, pardon me, 100% cotton thread that is this thin. It's very thin. It comes in a big ball like this. I can get probably about 1.5 bandages out of this, and I think this runs me about $3.97. It looks like a lot of yarn, but the bandage really eats it up. It's very, very fine thread. The needle says US 6/1.6 millimeter on it, 1.6 mm on it. It's a very tiny little crochet hook. You can use one a little bigger, a little smaller. It doesn't matter. Just as long as it's fairly small, because you want the stitches kind of small. You also can use this. I'll put them up here by contrast. See, this is kind of an ecru color. You can use this as well if you want to. I wouldn't use anything that's colored. This is just natural. This is a natural fiber. This has been bleached white. So you can use the white or the cream color. I have made some of the natural color ones. I just prefer the white. So here's how you start. You just make, you just really are kind of making a little loop that if you pulled all the way through, it would make a knot. You just get that on your hook. That's all you do. If you're crocheters, you know how to do this. If you're not particularly crocheters, show this video to someone and they'll be able to walk you right through this. So here I've got my first little stitch on there, my first little loop on there, and then I'm going to go under and grab my thread and pull it through. This is called, I believe, chain stitching, and you just keep going. That's 2, 3. I do this very loosely. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All I'm doing is going up and grabbing my thread and pulling it through. That's 11 and 12. So I've got a dozen stitches on, and you see how loose that is. I'm sorry, my camera doesn't do close-up very, very well. But I don't do them very tightly because then it's almost impossible when I come back to get my hook through that hole. So I've got 12 stitches on here. I'm going to pause the camera and I'm going to go ahead and put 26 on. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back and I've got 26 stitches, chain stitched on here. Now, you may, pardon me, you may need to do less or more than that. What you want is for your bandage to measure about, well, hold on. All right, here now I can get a handle on it. About between 3 and 3 1/4 inches wide. You can make a narrower bandage or a wider bandage. It just, I mean, it doesn't matter. And I think I have varied over time too. Let me see what this one is. Yeah, this one's about 3 inches wide. I think most of them are. Yep, they're about 3 inches wide. And I think I put 26 stitches on there. 26 chain stitches on there. So you'll just have to see. I'm sorry, I got a squeaky table here. You'll just have to see how many, based on how loosely or how tightly you crochet, how many stitches that is. Okay, and then what you do is you go into the first little stitch, the first little hole coming back. You grab your thread, pull it through. So now you've got 2 on your hook. Then you grab your thread again and pull it through both. That's it. Now you know how to make the whole bandage. That's it. So go into the next hole, grab your thread, pull it through. You have 2 on your hook now. Grab your loose thread and pull it through both of them. Okay? Now I will tell you, the first 3 or 4 rows are the hardest ones because, of course, I have really big hands. But to hold on to this little bitty tail here gets kind of tedious, and if you have arthritis like me, it's even a little more tricky. Once you get a little bandage done, then it's pretty easy to hold on to. But the first few rows are a little tedious, and that's all you do. You just go in the next chain stitch, pull your thread through. You have 2 on your hook now, and pull it through both of them. That's it. Somebody maybe can tell me what that's called, because I don't know. All I know is how to do it over and over and over again. And it does take a good while. I mean, if I'm not doing anything else and I'm really working hard, I can knock out one of these in 2 days. But pretty much no housework gets done if I'm doing that. And now it's just to the point where I've got plenty in storage to use. So I only do it, just to kill time and for fun, because I already have all the bandages I need. So you can see, now don't worry, because see how my little tail's kind of curling up like that? Don't worry, when you get some more rows on, it's going to lay flat. So just don't give up when you're doing the first 2 or 3 rows, because it's really kind of hard. But after you get like 3 or 4 rows on, you're going to see your progress, and it's going to look great. So I'm going to back out of here for just a minute. I'm going to do a few rows to show you, and then I'll come back. I'm probably just going to do a little sample piece like this, and then just show you how I finish it off, because you don't need to see me crochet 4 feet of this stuff. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Alright, I've been gone a few minutes, and I've done this much. It goes pretty quickly, actually. And if you get to the end of a row, and when I first started, I'm like, okay, where does that last stitch go? Where is the hole? When you know you're down to your last stitch, just poke it in somewhere at the end. Go through, grab. You've got your 2 stitches on your hook here, and pull it through. Now the only other thing you need to know is when you get to the end of a row, you need to just chain stitch 1. So just chain, there you go, and that leaves you room to turn it and go back. Okay, so then you're going to go into the first hole and then just keep going. Now I will tell you, this gets to be pretty mindless, which I like because I can, let me get some more thread here. You can just do it. There's not a lot of thought that goes into it. There's no, detailed pattern you're having to complete or anything like that. So I just kind of can go at it while I'm, sitting around talking or whatever. I don't have to think about it too much. But occasionally, if you get, just a little bit distracted or tired and you're not paying attention, what you may do is instead of going into the next hole that you're supposed to go into, you may accidentally skip one and go into the second hole instead of the next hole. So what happens when you're, pardon my dog, what happens when you look at it, you'll see that it's getting smaller, that your row is shorter because you actually missed a stitch and went into the next one, so you've actually shortened your row. If you're only a couple of rows down and you notice that you've made that mistake, then you can just simply, take your hook out and pull it out until you get, to the mistake and fix it. What I usually do is I usually don't notice it until I'm, 15 rows away. If I do that and I've skipped one, if I've skipped a hole, then on the next row what I do is I go into a hole, I make my stitch, and I go back in that same hole and do another one, and then I've added that stitch back and my row will be right again on the next couple of rows I do. It'll get right. I have done some of these where this edge has gone in and out because I haven't been able to keep my row straight. The same is true if you accidentally go twice in the hole, then you will have enlarged the width of your bandage. So like on the next row, then you'll just do the opposite. You will skip a hole intentionally so that you can decrease the width. But it's not a big deal. These are not, you're not entering this into the state fair or something. It's for your own use. And if your rows are a little, and I am not kidding, I have had some where my outer edge is just, it's just all over the place because I've dropped stitches and I've had to add a row or whatever. But now I can do them. Now I can do them pretty straight. This feels wonderful if you were to use it as a bandage. We have used it as a bandage in my house, and it just wraps around. I should have this in a roll. It'd be easier to put on. It just wraps around beautifully, and it feels comfortable. You can tighten it up if you want to, or loosen it up. It's just as comfortable as it can be. There are also people, I don't know what they're called, but where they have, a medical appliance or something like for, I don't know, maybe dialysis or blood transfusion or something that has to stay in their skin. You really could make one of these if you needed to and just make a cuff like this and just crochet the edge together so that so that you could pull it on an arm. If you had something that you just needed to keep covered, you didn't need a big bandage on it or something. Do you understand what I'm saying? You could just make a circle out of it that you could pull on and off to keep something covered if you wanted to. Now, I will tell you this. When you get to the end, if I've crocheted this to the end, when I get to that last stitch, all I do is cut my thread and then just pull it straight through, and that will close it off. But then you're going to be left with a, with a tail of string pretty much like is at the beginning. This is where I started. So what I do with this is I hold this little piece of string as best I can, and then I just start winding it through some of the stitches and pulling it I don't want to just cut it off even there because I want to give myself some thread to wind it through. And all I'm just doing is pulling it in and out some of those stitches that are close to it. And I may do this the whole length. See how I've come from the end to here? And I'm just pulling it in and out these stitches down here to wind it through. And then when I get down here, you know, I'll cut it off. But that way I've hidden that extra string in there and just kind of reinforced that edge just a little bit instead of just cutting it off down here. Because if for some reason it were to, you know, to come loose down here, it could possibly unravel, and I don't want that to happen. So I just bury this thread by weaving it in and out with my hook all the way to the end. And it's the same way when I cut this off. When I get to the end of a row, when I've got my 4 feet done, when I get to the end of the row and I pull that stitch through, I leave a tail and then I just wind it back through here. That's all there is to it. It's as simple as it can be. Now, when I hear some really competent preppers say the same thing over and over, that really causes me for my ears to perk up and take note. And I've heard Patriot Nurse say more than once, and some other very competent preppers say, how many ever bandages you have, you know, disposable bandages, adhesive bandages, gauze pads and stuff, in a long-term situation, you don't have enough. No matter how much you think you have, you don't have enough. And I took that to heart, and that's one of the main reasons I started crocheting some more of these for my family, because this beats a disposable bandage all to heck. I know you have to wash it and bleach it and all that, but I'm not going to run out of this. I can wash it and bleach it over and over, and if I've got a patient that needs 2 bandages at one time, then I've got the other 2 drying on the line. And we'll probably go ahead, here's my 5th one, we'll probably go ahead and make a couple of more because, you know, in a long-term situation where medical attention isn't available, you want to help as many people as you can. And with this being $3.97 a roll, and I can make almost 2 bandages out of it, why not? The other thing I'll tell you is if I were to get to the end of a roll of yarn and I had only, my threads are hooked up here, and I had only crocheted 2 feet and I needed to crochet 2 more feet, all I do when I get to the end of my thread of 1 is take the thread from the new one and tie them together, tie 2 or 3 little knots in them, and just pretend the knot isn't there and just keep crocheting. It's just as simple as that. I hope I've made this where you can understand. This is pretty much the only thing I know how to crochet. I can crochet, you know, a real simple Afghan or something like that, but this is not particularly my hobby, and I don't know a lot about how to explain it. I hope that if you know someone who's a great crocheter and you want to do this and you haven't understood exactly what I've said, that you have them take a look at this video and they won't have any trouble explaining to you how to do it. Again, just remember they're about 4 feet long and about 3 inches wide. You can vary that to suit your own needs. Make them wider or longer, however you want. Just be sure that you get 100% cotton thread and a little bitty needle so that your stitches are fine. And buy you a package of long clothespins that you can close them, that you can close your bandage off when you need to. Make sure they're clean. Slip them in a Ziploc bag, and you've got it. A lot of you were asking for this video, and I was so apprehensive about making it because I really don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to crocheting, but I hope it's helped you and that it gives you some good ideas. And I did it because I care. Cat's Cradle.